Alright, hello, welcome to Not Yesterlore. We are in a project stream. This is the third project stream. This is our second project stream, but third session, working on adapting Northseapoet's Northumbrian rune poems into Old English. And over the week I have been looking ahead at the other poems and getting some ideas and brainstorming for how I'm going to adapt them. I didn't actually get a chance to write out any of these on the document itself yet, and there's sort of just like disparate lines in the future. So I have worked on this quite a bit, but not actually made any progress in putting it on the page. So we're just going to resume with the last rune poem that we were on. I will be continuing to work on this for the rest of the weekend pretty much, so I will get a good deal of the way further down after today. So next week when we come back to this, there will be a lot more rune poems completed, and it'll be more of a like me explaining what I did, past tense. But we're just still live adapting today. I did get one line down from last time. Last time we left off here with Elda Setle, here, the seat of men. What I've added is yet another one-to-one line correspondence, which for the most part we've not been doing. Most of the lines have been a half line in Old English, but this line is a full line, which means we're going to need another full line in here to even it out once more. Or they could just all be full lines and we just stretch them out, but I doubt that's going to happen. I do think, though, that this next line might also be its own line. Maybe even this one. This might be a long one, actually, this Os poem. But what I've added, so far let's go over what we have for Os. So it's, let me read it in English first. The smithy of spells, our seat of poetry and words, from where the language comes flowing into the common seat of men, as though the tempest-blown wave on the ridge, in here, the holy cup of the raven god, crafted like the finest of arm fires for bard and poet alike, and for friends and lover alike, to wield like the knight with sword. Okay, and what we've got so far with the Old English, we have Seu smitha galdra, the smithy of spells, literally galdr being the sort of Northumbrian way to say spell here. So it's the smithy of spells. User yid warda setl. So what I did is I sort of wrapped poetry and words together. It said poem words, yid warda, and it's our yid warda setl, the seat, and this is a genitive plural noun here, used attributively, as they often are. Our seat of poetry, word and words, poem words. Theodes utfaru, from where the language comes flowing. Here it's languages coming, like flowing out or coming out. And this is actually echoing the for that you find in the old Norwegian rune poem, the sort of like estuary meaning of os in Old Norwegian. Uses that word, the cognate of that word for in Old Norse. So I wanted to use it here in Old English just for a fun little parallel. Into the common seat of men, I have just to elda setle, to the seat of men. Now, as though a tempest-blown wave on the ridge, I kind of just adapted that as best I could with swelcha styrmid way on stan hrydje. So the wave is stormed upon. That's how I got across tempest blown here. And then ridge actually comes from the Old English word hrydj, and hrydj actually means like spine. In Old English, it's like your backbone is your ridge, your hrydj. And using ridge as a way to talk about like geographical feature is a bit of like an extension of the word. But there are some compounds that make it explicit that that's what it is, and I used stan hrydj here, which is an attested compound. I can't remember where it shows up, but it does show up in Old English, to make it unambiguously not someone's spine, but a ridge, geographically. And it's good because the ST will alliterate with styrmid here, And there we got our alliteration. Now in here, the Holy Cup of the Raven God. I might stick pretty closely with the modern English here too, but it'll be a little tricky to try to get it to fit into it. Actually, it might not be that tricky. I'm going to go herein, herein. And this is going to not be one of our stresses. This is going to just be sort of like a lead up syllable, kind of like swelche is here. It's not part of the 4 beats here. Herein, hali, oh, there we go. Hali full. I'm using full for cup. There are a lot of different words for cup in Old English, but I'm using full because it feels nice and it's definitely going to fit into a beat. Hali full, and then nicely, Raven starts with an H in Old English, Raven. We might have already used, yeah, we used Raven ween up here, so we're going to use Raven, Raven goddess. And see, if this weren't short, I would be more comfortable just having this be my second half line. Like Stanhrij is the whole second half line. Like this is where the line half line break is. And then Stan and Hrija, because they're both heavy syllables. But especially with this genitive suffix on God, like of the Raven God, the God is, yeah, goddess, is tricky because now it's a light syllable here, and so it can't function as its own thing. I mean, it could. I could stretch the meter, but it feels weird. Of the Raven God. Herein hali full Raven goddess, crafted like the finest of arm fires for a bard poet. Well, what I could do is I can see myself fitting this, like this whole bit into a half line, and then this whole bit into a half line, and I can already see how I can maybe alliterate these together as well. So I might want to bump crafted up here. As well, and then that'll sort of feel more complete. So I have this might be a little tricky. Because usually you don't have like a grammatical pause inside of a half line. You have them at the half line break. So like it's really typical, very, very typical for like a sentence to end like here and then start a new sentence. But having this like the caesura here and then having the sentence break here, I can't think of an example where I've seen that. Maybe it exists, but I have never seen it. Or at least I don't recall seeing it anywhere. So it feels really wrong. I could change the syntax here, though. In here, the Holy Cup of the Raven God, crafted like the finest arm fires. See, if I put crafted here, it's going to seem like I'm saying the Raven God crafted it, which might be the case, but I don't think that's what the poem here is exactly getting across in modern English, even if that's true. So I kind of want to preserve that. So I could use a different word for God. That's also possible. I don't want to use os, though, because os is the rune that we're talking about. I could use something else, like Lord or something like that. Raven Lord. That would be fine, probably. Okay, I have a really nice kenning that I just came up with Havenhirde, but that's an H, and I can't have another H here as my last stress. Maybe just Ravenward, the Raven Ward. And then that also, that feels a lot more complete because it's also a heavy syllable there. Ward is, yeah. Ravenwardus. Yeah, that's good. The Raven Ward, Raven Warden, Raven Guardian. I hope northseapoet's okay with that. Okay. Crafted like the finest of arm fires. I might be a little discombobulated because I haven't had breakfast yet, but I am not sure what's meant by arm fires here. Like, what is an arm fire in this context? I'm not sure how to translate it because I'm not sure what is meant. Crafted like the finest of arm fires for bard and poet alike. So, an arm fire is something that is for a poet. Arm fire. I'm going to skip this bit, but it's going to have to fit into a half line because I think this is only going to take up a half line. And I'm thinking whatever arm fire means, I'm hoping I could reuse lay for fire there, because then I can alliterate it with something in the second half that starts with an L. And it could be like a parallel for crafted, because the word for bard or poet, there's not really a distinction in Old English exactly. Would just be, one of my favorite ones is leoth wirta, a poem builder, poem worker. So, and it's for the poem worker, so it's leoch wirtan. Leoth wirtan. And then, so we've got leoth and wirtan. And wircht, again, is a heavy syllable, so that can function. This can function as its own half line. Which means this, we need L alliteration. And fire, I could just use lay again for fire, and that would alliterate with leoth here. Whatever arm fire means. I just want to get a confirmation on what is meant by arm fire. northseapoet is not here in the chat today. I don't know if he's going to show up, but I can check with him and see if he's happy with that. But we'll move on. I'm confident whatever it is, I can fit into a half line there. It's going to need to be, because this is a half line. And for friends and lover alike. Okay? So, to wield like the knight with sword. See, this is light enough, like a light load of meaning enough to fit into a half line. But this, I don't think, is. I don't think it is. Yeah, I can't see how I can make it, like, small enough to fit. Yeah, I talked about how I'm probably going to use Thane here, or maybe Bear. But switch to Bear. Bear mit Blad. blada here. Not blada. Blada, short ash. Blada. Beorn with blada. Well done. Maybe. That's like 3/4 of a full line there. So I'm thinking I might need to stretch this to be a full line, but I can't stretch this to be a full line is the problem. Now, if I could make this a full line, then I could easily alliterate these two and then have this be a full line. Ooh, it's tricky. Yeah, okay. I might do that. I might sort of just rethink all of this. What we're going to see is there are a lot of full lines in this one. I think it might be longer even than Thorn, which was our longest one yet. Or no, Thorn and Feoch were the same length. Ur was perfectly in line. And then Ols is going to be maybe longer. I think longer. Yeah. So, yeah, Swelcha. There's going to be a lot of Swelcha in this. There's already a Swelcha here. Probably going to be a Swelcha in this line. And then also Swelcha here. And like the night. Swelcha's the normal way to say, like, something is similar. It's the way to make similes, basically. A lot of the time in Old English. But, or you can use swa as well. That's another option. I might use swa for one of these. They're slightly different in meaning, but like mostly in poetry they can function synonymously. Sometimes things are grammatically distinct, but they functionally mean the same thing in poetry because of parallelism, which is being used constantly, as you can see. So, Forleoth Wirchtan, Swelche for Freundum. I need to put lovers first. Luviendum. Needs to go first. Luviendum. And it's a short lu, but the luvi, quick succession, short syllables, makes up for that. Luviendum and friendum. Okay. I could just say swelche, because the four is already there. Yeah, swelche, luviendum, and friendum. For Leoth Wirtan swelche, luviendum, swa, better there. Swa, luviendum, and friendum. Okay. To wield like the knight with sword. And then we use swelche again. Swelche, beorn, something, yeah. I'm not sure where I want to put sword here. I used blad. Oh no, I used bill. Actually, I might use bill here too, because bill is mid blada won't really work because it's too short in a row. But at the end of the line, it's kind of weird. Could work, but I like billa better. Mid, but like I don't know if I want to put billa here. and then have to come up with something before the verb, or if I want to have something else in the first half line and use midbilla as my like guaranteed B in the second half line with well done, well done. Oh, I need to leave a note for myself. If I'm using well done here, I was trying to remember what is the object of well done, because whatever it is, it should be probably dative or genitive. And I think it's arm fires, that to wield arm fires like the knight with sword. So whatever this thing is, I'm going to leave a note. Well done, when you use it for a weapon, it just isn't accusative. In English, we wield something, and the something is the direct object. But in Old English, it shows up either as a dative of instrument or instrumental, if it's one of the few cases where instrumental looks different than dative. In Old English, they're usually the same. This, for example, this is the dative case, but I'm using it instrumentally, and I'm using mid just to make it extra clear that I'm using an instrumental with sword. So you wield either with a dative of instrument / instrumental case of the thing that you're wielding, or sometimes you see it with the genitive. So you like wield of a weapon. So I'm just going to leave a note to myself. Whatever this is needs to be genitive or dative, if that is indeed the object of wield here. And I think it's going to need to be an oblique infinitive here. To wield. In order to wield. So that's usually going to be like to welden. Or we might see Anna in Northumbrian. I'll double check that, but it'll be Enna usually in West Saxon at least. So this is not full yet. So to bern midbilla to welden. Something. I need something to welden. So probably like an adverb. Either I put an adverb of like how the knight is wielding the sword, or I have some kind of adjective on the sword, or some kind of adjective on the knight. I can describe the knight in some kind of detail, but I don't want to fabricate one. I want to find one that's in the line, or at least implied by the line. I don't want to invent too much to deviate from the original here. So I think what I'm going to do is I want to use Bern, but to me, knight, we talked about this a little bit in our last project stream, because Nico was here and commenting about how obviously what we think of as a knight nowadays, like a plate-armored jouster, that's sort of a late medieval concept, late medieval and Renaissance idea that doesn't exactly exist in the context of sort of this early English period that Old English would have been spoken in. But the word Beorn and Thane and stuff are often translated knight still, because of sort of just like the relationship between the warriors and their lord. It's like analogous-ish. But maybe this choice of knight is meant to also get across something about, like, what we think of with later medieval knights, like gallantry, or maybe shining. Because that would be easy. I could just say Beorcht, Beorcht, or I think it would be Bricht in the north. Which actually reminds me, did I say Beorcht earlier? I think there should be liquid metathesis in the north here. Yeah, it would be like Brecht, probably. I may be misremembering what should be happening in Northumbrian. That's why I'm going to do like a Northumbrian pass when I'm done with all of this, just to go through and be like, what needs to change to make it more Northumbrian dialectally. I think I'm not going to do bright. I might just say like noble about something simple. Like adalite or something. Adalite. And then this is the second half line. Mit billa toalden. Actually, if this is also part of in the comparison on object of Walden, probably don't need the mid there. Billa to Walden. Okay. So with the exception of this half line, we're basically done with this poem. Now let me sort of align these to the Old English half lines. Just so we can see the comparison. And oh, this makes it tricky to parse, but the heading is not one of the. I know it starts with H. I might just say innan just to avoid the potential misreading of where the alliteration is. Innan haliful ravenwardes. Whatever the heck this is, which is going to need to be 2 lines. Yeah, this is our longest one yet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is our longest poem yet. It went 2 full lines longer. Thorn went 1 full line longer, and Feoch went 1 full line longer. This one went 2 full lines longer. We just gotta stretch out crafted like the finest of our fires to 2 half lines. Okay. Rad. Easier to boast of sitting upon a stallion's father when in the hall of friends with its surf of malt flowing from within the wine vessel, more a challenge when sober to steer the ship of the league, with rein on hand from the seat, tied and strapped by girth to the stallion's father's back. Okay, we get stallion's father twice here, which is interesting. One thing I forgot to do today was open up the rune poems as a comparison, so I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, here we go. Might be cut off in a weird way because how I have my window set up. Oh, and it's doing a weird buffery thing. I just realized why things might be running slowly. I think Discord is open and running in the back, and I'm going to turn that off. Yeah, I'm going to turn that off. I usually do before the stream, but I think I forgot to do that this time. There we go. It should be good now. Okay. We are rad betonade til rinka jahuljon. Sefte answeet stam det sitteth on ovan mara mayan herdom over milpathas. Okay. Milpathas. Not milpathas, it's not a long A. Okay, so easier to boast of sitting upon a stallion's father. This stallion's father repeating is interesting to me. I'm not remembering it from any of the rune poems. Let me check the other two that we looked at. No. There's no stallion's father in any of the other ones. That's interesting. It might be coming from a different poem, or it might be original. It might be an original concept, but I like it. I like it. So how are we going to get that across? It comes up twice, so I would want to do it in a similar way both times, just to be paralleling it. Onuvan. I want to repeat the Onuvan that we see in. I mean, we could even just completely copy this line. Thamthe sitteth on Uvan. He sits upon. Easier to boast of sitting upon a stallion's father. I'm pretty sure fathered is still fathered in the dative. It's one of those weird ones to decline in Old English. It's one of the rare consonant stems. So it's like fathered no matter what case it is in the singular. Although I think there's some places where you see fathedus for the genitive. I think it's usually just fathered, even there. And all the examples I can remember off the top of my head. And then steda is actually where we get the word steed from, but it means stallion in Old English. I'll move on. Yeah. Easier to boast is the thing that I'm struggling to word here, because like the choices with the syntax in the English are, I think, in a large part meant to be ambiguous, but translating that to Old English is difficult because alliterative verse likes to be, at least for the most part, parsable sentences. So I had to struggle a little bit with this one too. I'm like looking for what the verb is here. Easier to boast of sitting, like boast is a verb, but it's not the verb of the sentence. Easier to boast of sitting upon a stallion's father when in the hall of friends with surf of malt flowing from within the wine vessel. I'm like waiting for a than here because it's easier. From within the wine vessel. break. More a challenge when sober to steer the ship of an... Okay, so the only way I'm able to parse these is if there's a, like, it is at the beginning of these two sort of halves of the line. So it is easier to boast of sitting upon a stallion's father when in the hall of friends with surf of malt flowing from within the wine vessel than blah, 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 blah. It is more a challenge when sober to steer the ship of the league with rein in hand, tied and strapped by girth to the stallion's father's back. Okay. I think I know what I'm going to do then. I'm also mentally looking at all the lines to try to do the math on how many I think are going to fit into a full line or a half line. Okay. My other struggle here is anything here that can alliterate with anything here. Because the first verb for boast that comes to my mind is yelpan. There's also bowian, but yelpan feels better to me to use here. Which doesn't alliterate with anything in the second half line. So the verb can alliterate, and then easier is just going to be like yedra, or maybe adra, because it wouldn't undergo this. Would it undergo the umlaut in? I don't think the umlaut would happen in Northumbrian, so it'd just be like Yedra, maybe. It is easier. That's like an adverb. Yedra. I almost want to make it a verb, actually. Like it is easier. Yedreth or Yedrath, because it's Yedrian. It's to get easier or be easier, or make easier. Yedrath. Sit. Maybe my word for sitting can alliterate with something in the second half. I'm just racking my brain right now for words for sit that aren't some kind of derivative of sitan, because that's really the main one. to search. I'm going to open Bosworth Taller and search. So, this is tricky because no word for boast that I can think of or word for sit I can think of alliterates with either father or stallion. And I do not think there is another word for stallion. Like you could call it a horse, you could call it a stayed horse, or maybe a yes-stayed horse, but you can't, but that, it's, apart from that, we'd just be using a different word for horse instead of a word for stallion, which is fine, but I would want to use stallion just because it comes up twice. It seems to be important in this, this poem. And if I do use another word for horse, I'm trying to think of any of the other ones that would alliterate with anything in the first half of the line. Like horse or hengist or something could alliterate with an H word for boasting. It's something I'm struggling to find. My main contenders in my brain are yelpan, boyan or boan, beotan, and for sitting, they're all derivatives of sitan that come to my brain. Hlinian has an H, but Hlinian is more like lie down. It can mean lean. I think lean is the word that comes from it in modern English. And it can mean lean or incline towards something. So, like, I guess, like, you can imagine the rider sort of, like, leaning forward maybe and, like, lying on the horse. But I don't think that's the image that goes with this, especially because they're boasting. I feel like those two words don't really go together, boast and lean. Boast and just sort of, like, lying down on your horse. The vibes are off for me. So we're in a real pickle here. The only sort of like little thing that is coming into my mind is doing a really weird thing. It happens very rarely, which is treating this sort of like prepositional adverb, or I guess it is an actual preposition here, but treating this preposition like as if it is my stress, because then it's on vowel alliteration with uvan here, on uvan, and then it alliterates with edra. Something in my soul tells me not to do that, though, if I can avoid it, because it's very rare. And usually it's done to sort of like put emphasis on the preposition in question. There are times when you want to emphasize the preposition, and those are the times when it tends to be, you treat it, the alliteration goes on to the preposition. And I have nothing to emphasize about onuvan here, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense to adapt either. I'm going to leave this behind, this section, and move on, because I'm a little stuck here. I guess I'll write some of my ideas. I'll put some like options here for myself later. Beotan, Yilpan, Boan, and then sitan, Hlinian does not feel good. So sitan is what the rune poem, the Old English rune poem uses, so I want to use it, but I would have to have this alliterate then. And as you can see, none of them do, and there isn't really another word for stallion, so my other option would be to change the word for horse, and I can't think of a word for horse that... See, there's like... If I use Eoch is one of the other runes, but if I use Eoch, that could alliterate with Ethran, and I could like sort of move that around. If I use, none of the other words for horse I can think of, or steed, like widge, and like father of your steed feels weird. I know steed is literally this word, but it doesn't mean steed, it means stallion. I changed the word for horse. What other word for horse could I use that isn't H or vowel or W? Sorry, I'm forgetting the origin of a particular word in Middle English, blanc, which gets used for steeds and horses a lot. I think it might come from French, and that's why I'm struggling here, because I don't think it comes from Old English, because blanc in Old English just means blank, and I believe it's a borrowing from Latin. And I think the reason it becomes the word for horse is because there's this like image of riding white horses, and then it just became the word for horses in Middle English, or like a word for horses. But I want to check, actually. I don't think I've ever looked at the Bosworth-Toller entry for blanc before. Blanc comes from Proto-Germanic blancas. Really? Oh, so it's a Germanic borrowing into Romance. Okay, that actually tracks. It definitely has more of a Germanic feel to the word shape. That's what Google says. Hey, yeah, BL does show up in Latin. Like, there are sources for BL, but BL feels a lot more like when you have a BL in a Germanic language. The cognate Indo-European-wise tends to be an FL Latin-wise. For example, like blossom versus flower. Those are cognate distantly, like the root is cognate. The FL in Latin corresponds to the BL in Germanic. Oh no, it is attested, meaning a white or gray horse. Also, hello, Nico. I'm glad you came, because I have some questions. A white or gray horse. On Blancan. Okay, it means white or gray horse. Are you okay if our horse is gray? If the stallion is a gray horse or a white horse here? Because I need something that alliterates with B desperately here. Steda means stallion, but I need something with B. Really bad. I'm not fussed about color, no. Okay, we're using Blanca here. Blankan fader onuvan. Thank you, because now I can use Beotan, Beotan for boast here. Edras Beotan Situnga. To be fair, having color for the horse could help the reader visualize the horse better. Yes, that's true. If the reader happens to know Old English, they'll get that detail that they don't get in the modern English then. Okay, since you're here, I had meant to pop in sooner, but got up late, so only getting to work ready for it. Okay, no, that's totally fine. I did have a question up here about arm fires. So as you can see, O's came out a lot longer than expected, but the arm fires, I'm not sure what's meant here by arm fires, and so I'm not sure how to translate it. Crafted like the finest of arm fires for bard and poet alike, and for friends and lovers alike, and lover alike. So I'm not sure what's meant by arm fire. Arm fires is gold. Oh, like bracelets? That kind of thing? Like it's shining like fire and it's on your arm? Okay. Like the arm rings and bracelets and shiny, yeah. Perfect. Okay, I think I have an idea of what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back to this later. I want to make some progress here. So I was saying earlier, I have like looked ahead at a bunch of the poems and came up with like brainstorming ideas, and I have notes for how I'm going to approach some of this translation, but I didn't actually end up having time like I thought I would to get to putting it down on the page. So that's what's happening now. I'm just sort of doing some more live translation this time. Wait a minute, is us 12 line breaks long? Yeah, a lot of us, like, so like, usually one of your lines is a half line in Old English. So, in this one, we ended up having like 3 full lines. Which ones were full? Yeah. As though a tempest blown wave on the ridge ended up being 2 half lines, full thing. In here, the Holy Cup of the Raven God also ended up being a full line. And then, to wield like a knight with sword also ended up being full line. Well, okay, 14, but remember that like 2 of my lines corresponds to 1 of yours. Like, so for example, a 10 would came out exactly perfect. Your 10 lines corresponded to 5 alliterative lines. But here, your 10 lines corresponded to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Oh, Frey. It's 14 lines long. Yeah. So what I was thinking, I was going to ask you this in private, but in terms of like presentation, I don't know if it would be better to just not have them lined up on the page and just have them be like full Old English line, full Old English line, like without the weird indentation bits, just to see what like the full line is in Old English. And we could keep the caesura there if we want. Like we can show where like the half line break is still. I usually do that with my Old English poetry. I usually like leave a little space. Like that is what I'm sort of imagining. So like the English, the modern English is like this, and then the Old English is like this. Maybe with like an extra space where there's a half line break. No half lines. That way it all matches up and saves me formatting. Okay, yeah. Cool. Okay. What that does mean is well, the thing is, in neither case will it match up completely in every poem. Like in the first one, you can see the Old English doesn't line up perfectly because we had a full line. Where's the full line? Very particular when it comes to the formatting. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, though. It's not fully lining up. No matter which approach we do, neither matches perfectly because they're not translating line for line exactly. It doesn't line up perfectly. No, it can't. It's because we're adapting the poem form. So where is it? A comfort. It should be from it. Where was it? Oh yeah, it was in the first poem. It was this line up here that ended up being like a full line, not two half lines. It ended up being two half lines instead of just one. Like most of them are, like Fire of the Waves is one half line. That Gleam So Bright was one half line. But On Both Land and Whale Road was two half lines. And that's why it comes undone. And then that also meant that we had to make the last one two half lines to have it be full, like have it be a complete poem. We could format it like this, where whenever the modern English is a full line, we keep it all in one line, if that makes you feel better, because then it is lining up, even though it's not like pattern. I'll work something out. Okay, for now I'm going to keep it like this, though, like have it line for line, like modern English matching with Old English line, even if the Old English is one line, it's going to be a... Okay, that way it lines up. You might like that better. I guess I'll do the same here too then. That lined up. This one lined up perfectly. Each of the modern English lines was one half line. Would was perfect. Thought was not. It was. I think it was just the first line. There was no. There were two lines. What was the other line that ended up being full? And Hawthorne. Yeah, it was the first two, I think, that ended up being their own lines. Yeah, the rest lined up half line, full line for half line. And then so far, yeah, Os was the longest. To Elde Settle, that all lines up, but then this was its whole thing. This was a whole thing. This, when I figured out, was going to be a whole thing. And this was a whole thing. Okay. So that's kind of how it lines up. So you can see what is half line, where it's indented, and then a full line is when there's no indent, right? I gotta go to work now. Catch you later. Okay. Good luck. And we could talk more about the formatting in private too, of course. Okay, so let's see. Sittunga. Okay, ja edrat beeltan sittunga. Let me see here. Not beeltan, beeltian is what I need here. Because beelt is a noun. Oops, my computer's talking to me. What are you saying? Yeah, I might go with Bojan instead of Beotian, because Beotian can mean boast, but it has more of like a negative, I guess, connotation as well, of like threatening. A Beot is a threat. Bojan is a little ambiguous though too, because it has a sort of homophone that means to live somewhere. Might just go with Boan. Boan, yeah, and it's still long, so it's fine. Because then Boan, but Boan and Ja, jädret boan situnga blankan fäderon ovan. Okay. And these are each half lines, so I'm going to end it. So I'm trying to do like 10 spaces. Okay. When in the hall of friends, with surf of malt flowing. From within the wine vessel, more challenge when sober. So I'm thinking friends, I might be a little loosey-goosey with this. Because I think I need something that alliterates with M, because I'm going to use malt in Old English as the word for malt here. And so I might use a word that means more like kinsman than friend, or like relative. I'm positive, I'm like almost positive that I've seen it used for friends anyway. In Old English, it usually means relative, though. Thunna on May Sella no. And malt you know, I almost feel like both of these lines could fit in one half line. Like thunna, like whenever flows malt in the friend's hall, in the friend hall, and then the within wine vessel would be the second half line. But we haven't done anything like this before, where two lines equate to one half line in Old English. It's just sometimes the Old English is more economical. Like it just, you can fit more in less space, less poetic space. Because I could stretch this to be like this to be a full half line, but this doesn't feel complete. Like I could say this is the second, but it's a short. I could change it to a different word for hall, and that would be fine. Like Mayselda or something like that. or, lots of words for hall. Yeah, but regardless, it doesn't have to be a full half line, because I can definitely get the malt flowing in there. What am I doing? It's gonna flow. So weird not to say flowth, because that's what you normally say, but it's Northumbrian. So gonna floweth on Maysella. Malt. What do I say? Now, that's the thing. Now that this is like a full sounding half line, there's nothing left. When flows in the Hall of Friends, malt something from within the wine vessel. From within the wine vessel. I could fit that up here. That's the thing. That would fit in here. Like... Wien Vata. Malt of Wien Vata. I could do another 10 lines, or spaces. There we go. Takes 3 English lines for 1 Old English line, in this case. There we go. I hope northseapoet is okay with this. More a challenge when sober to steer the ship of the league. Okay. I could do sea steed for ship, and then we could get stallion back in. Sea stallion. I could do that for ship, and that would be fun. Because that would actually alliterate better than any word for ship that I could think of for with steer. So I might do that. I might do that, yeah. Do we want to use rune for challenge, or just out of the nest or something like that? Well, I used Yeerian earlier. Maybe I should use a verb here. What verb, though? To be a challenge. There are a few different ways I could say that I can think of. It'd be fun if I could have a verb related to advas, but I can't think of any. How long have you been studying Old English? This is really cool. Knox Taylor asks. 15 years. I started 15 years ago. And I started independently 15 years ago, and then like in terms of doing formal like university related stuff with Old English, that was 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago. It's when I had my first like Old English class in university. But yeah, I just really enjoy composing Old English poetry, and I do it a lot. What I am less experienced doing is translating modern English to Old English. Usually when I translate poetry, it's the other way around. So this is a fun challenge, especially because I'm trying to adhere to North Sea Poet's modern English here as much as I can. But as you can see, it doesn't always match up with these lines here. I think I want to use, it's a different ball game. Yes, it is a different ball game. Is oretan, I'm trying to think if oretan is ever used in a poem. It feels like a very prosy word to me. There's certain vocabulary in Old English that's like sort of more locked off to like, this is used in prose and this is used in poetry, especially the latter. I'm trying to think if oretan is one of those that's more, like, it seems prosy to me because I think it's only ever been in prose that I've seen the verb, but I could be wrong. Because that would be good. But yeah, I don't think it's ever used in poetry. I just looked it up on Bosworth Toller and I don't see any poem attestations here. Okay, so I'll come up with my verb for to be a challenge. And then the sober bit, I'm also not sure how I'm going to translate, but I know what I want to do here, which is steoran. Stedan are going to alliterate in some way. To make them sea steeds, though, is difficult because if I just do a compound sea steed, then the alliteration's on sa and not steda. So I think what I'm going to have to do is do something to make it clear that they are on the water here. I could do that with league. The thing is, if I use lida, that doesn't really work. Lida, because that doesn't fit metrically, I don't think. It's not thick enough. But I could say flotena. Steoran. Stedan. Flotena. Wait a second. I'm trying to fit this. And it's a challenge. To steer the ship of the league. Steoran, stedan flotena. Of the fleet, basically, is what this is. Of the ships. the steeds of the ships of the fleet. But then my challenge is I need another beat for this to be a full line, or I could push steer up here, but then I need to figure out what I'm going to do up here that's short enough to accommodate having a whole verb there that alliterates with steed. I think what I could do is could I use Clippy on here for challenge? Clipion means like to make an appeal or to like reach out to someone. And I was thinking maybe poetically I could use Clipion here. I think big Clipion is actually attested to mean challenge, but it's like verbally challenge someone, which is actually closer to boast up here. But no, I don't think I could use that. I think I might do like, it is to be more difficult. The verb for which escapes me. I can't think of a verb that means to be difficult. I was thinking of oretan before because oretan means to like do a difficult task. But I'm pretty certain it's a prose word and not a poetry word. What I'm doing currently is I'm scouring Basra Tuller for a verb here that means to be more of a challenge. Because I'm positive there's got to be one that exists in Old English in some way. Oh, while I'm here, what I should do is share the link to Bosworth Tuller. Bosworth Tuller is a really cool Old English dictionary. There are a lot of cool tools. If you use the advanced search especially, lets you search in a lot of cool ways. Okay, so I'm looking at... I could just say it is difficult with the verb for to be. That's also an option I do have. I'm just trying to avoid it. Oh, you know what I should be searching? That's what I should be searching. Honestly, I have a question for the chat, if anyone's in chat. Would it be more interesting in future streams if I actually shared my Bosworth Tuller tab? I don't know how fun it is to look at someone looking something up in a dictionary, but I also have to think it's more fun than just looking at me not doing anything on my typing screen. Ooh, that's a very useful link. I love poetry, but I'm completely new to the language. Oh yeah, that's totally fine. Old English is not everyone's cup of tea, so that's totally fine. What I'm looking at is to vex, afflict, torment. The sharing tab would be a very good idea. Okay, yeah, just to see what it's like to be searching for these Old English terms. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I think I could do that now. It'll just mean I have to... Actually, no, I'll do that next time. I need to play with how a display on OBS is going to look, because the different websites are going to like have different places where I would want to cut it off. Yeah, I think next time what I'll do is I will ahead of time check what the dictionary will look like in my on my screen next to my poems. Because yeah, I agree it would be. Yeah, it would be a good way to further see your thought process and structure. Yeah, I think I agree. What I'm going to do for now, though, is what I'm looking for is a word. I changed my search term to oppress, because a lot of the time the word for oppress just kind of means to be put in a hard situation, to trouble. Is busyan ever used for poetry? I know the word busyu is. Busyan is the ancestor of the verb busy, like to busy someone with something. To occupy. I just want to see if it's ever used for poetry. Or in poetry. I see homilies, I see... oh, it's in a riddle. Those are poems. Guthlach. Okay. Okay, Andreas. Yeah, it shows up in some poems. Okay, I'm going to use it. It's short, right? Yeah. All right. Is yes. Ma steuran oh wait, I can't I can't forget the sober part. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do a trial here where I drag Bosworth Taller up, whoops, and see how it fits on my screen. Thank you for being my guinea pigs during this difficult time. Okay, you can see the whole thing. Okay. That's good. How about advanced search? How does that look? A bit cut off, but that's... Oh, I can't make it any wider. Okay. That's just how it's going to look, I guess. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so what you get when you're doing an advanced search in Bosworth Taller is you get this sort of page. And for whatever reason, they want you to like have an and there already. I remove that. And then I change it. If I'm looking based on modern English, I usually go to definitions or definitions and translations if I want a wider net. Because each entry usually has examples. And then some of the examples have translations. And also, a lot of the time, translations are in Latin. So you can choose definitions and translations and search for a word in Latin. It's not too badly cut off. You can definitely see the important info. Thank you. What I'm trying to check is if I can find, because I'm looking for sober. I don't think I've ever seen a word meaning sober in Old English, so I have no idea if anything is even going to come up. Okay. It's actually kind of what I expected to find, if anything. Undrunken, not drunk. Okay. Jedreuch. Where does that come from? Jedreuch. Okay, I'm opening that in a new tab. Süverlich. Okay. That might be useful. Actually, that might even be really good, because then that syver, but the termination of the Latin word is doubtful. Note. Yeah, so this is definitely a loan from Latin. The Latin word for sober is sobrius. And so I think severlich is taking sobrius, adapting it, borrowed in, and then adding lich to make it clearly an adjective in Old English. But it looks like down here you don't even need that. You can say severata, moderate in eating, sober, and even just suvra by itself, not giving way to appetite or passion. What I want to see is where jedreoch comes from, because that sounds a lot more like a native Germanic word. So I'm going to look at the entry here, and this is what an entry usually looks like on Bosworth Toller. You can say where it fits in the overall dictionary over here. You see adjective here, and then show examples. There's one example, and where is it? Takes a second to load the entry, so sometimes for the reference, and sometimes it also just doesn't load for you. I can't remember what this abbreviation is in Bosworth Toller. If I go here, I can find, like, what does this abbreviation mean? What book is this referring to? But if I look at it, we ladeth at man at chirichwakan switha jedreoch. See, so I can already tell here that this is prose. We teach that man at the church wakes, be very sober. Yeah. Okay, so whatever it is, it's showing up in this, what sounds like some kind of homily or something. If I'm trying to guess where it comes from, it must be related to dreogan. Dreogan means to like do a duty. But it can also mean like to undergo or endure something. So jedreoch here to me reads as like doing what one ought, almost like be sober, be very sober. Switha jedreoch. But that's just my guess. I can't actually find an etymology for this word. I'm looking at some etymologies right now, and I'm not finding anything. So I'm just finding jedreoch as a translation for sober, but also sivra as a translation for sober. I think I might go with sivra, the Latin loan, because actually I do want to see where it shows up. Sivra, because just to see if it comes up in any poems. Seeing homilies. Interlinear Old English translation of a Latin text. Okay. Vocabulary gives translations, glosses, homilies of Alfric. Okay. That's in the hymnals, Old English hymnals, faste that mod suvre. Yeah, I'm mostly seeing homilies. But I'm sure if I go to Siverlicha, I'll see like that it might be used in some other context too. Not there. Oh, it's another hymnal. Okay, maybe not. It's an adverb here, soberly. More homilies. Okay. Okay, in that case, maybe it's not the best word to use in this rune poem, then. Just contextually, it seems to be tied with, like, Christian religious stuff. Not that that's disqualifies it from being used in an Old English poem, but it just feels tonally off. I think I'm going to go with jedreoch in that case. If I'm mirroring what I did up here, I'm ignoring the verb, but this is a much thicker verb to ignore than this verb is. It's okay to have some extra metrical stuff, especially after this nonsense where I have 3 lines go to one full line. So yeah, that's fine. Yebizith ma. I'm going to make up an Old English word right now. Jedreochliche stauran. Soberly. I know we had siverliche for soberly before, but I'm using this native Old English word. Jedreochliche stauran. Steden flottene. Yeah. Je bezit ma jedreuchliche steuran. Je bezit ma jedreuchliche steuran. Steden flottene. This is a very long half line. This is like one of those, at the end of the Wanderer, there's some really, really long half lines. I'm going to see if I can get them, just to show how long half lines can be. Sometimes they're like super long, and they seem to be, at least to me, written not in the same context, or maybe even by the same poet as the rest of the Wanderer was written. I don't know how this is going to display here. Let's see how it looks, how cut off it is. Oh, it's not too bad. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the last like few lines, I'm going to zoom out just so you can see the difference here. There are some like super long lines up here too in the Wanderer that might be really tiny. Yeah, it's really tiny. Let me zoom in. But you can see most, like, there's a sort of range of how long the lines tend to be. And then you get to the last 5 and it's like, bam, they're all super long. So like you're just supposed to completely ignore akuthan, which is actually just sort of like breaking the meter a little bit. You're just ignoring yefreman metrically. Again, ara is the first stress here, metrically. This is all extrametrical. Extrametrical means you ignore it for the purpose of the meter. These kind of long lines are a lot more typical in like old High German fragments of alliterative verse, and in to an extent old Saxon lines are like this a bit too, pretty long. But the old High German ones that you see in like Hildebrandslied get really long. And that's what this feels like. So if we have 1 or 2 lines like that, that's fine. Yeah, so you bezit madreuchliche steuran. So you just ignore all this metrically. It's more of a challenge to soberly steer the steed of the fleet. Okay. With rein in hand, from the seat, tied and strapped with girth. Or strapped by girth to the stallion's father's back. Okay. I think I actually know what I'm going to do here. Steden fader. I can finally use steed here for the blanca here. Steden fader. Ridge. I'm using ridge, the one that was up here, meaning stone ridge, because ridge actually means back or spine. So here it's Steden fader ridge, and this is a half line, which means this is also going to have to be a half line, which means this is going to have to be a full line, doesn't it? It does. Okay, so with rein in hand from the seat. So the thing is, rein is a Norman loan. So, trying to remember what the Old English word for this is. I think we've literally had it in one of our Yesterlore poems before, but I'm not remembering what the word is right now. So we're going to head over to Bodsworth-Taller and check to see if there's any like actual translation for rain specifically, or if we're going to have to like widen our net for like rain kidney. Oh, that's a different meaning of rain. That's a different rain. Yeah, sometimes you'll see it like randomly just reload unprompted and just give you A to Z, like it just starts at A. That happens sometimes. This feels more right. Lad tach leading rain. Leather. That's what I was thinking of. Leather. It means leather, but in Old English, leather often just means a thing made of leather, like a belt or something like that. So, leather as the word for rain makes sense. And here it's Yawad leather, power leather, wielding leather. Same thing here, just with a weird kind of spelling variation and devoicing for some reason. Yeah, I see wild leather in a few different forms here. Directing leather, rain. Okay, this is good if I use one of these because it's very thick and could take up a whole half line on its own. So that works out really well, actually. And if I remember correctly, leather is neuter because it's just leather in Old Norse, and that would be lethra in Proto-Germanic, which is neuter. So I think it's mid. I don't even need the mid. This is poetry. I could just rely on the dative here. Wild leather. Wild leather. Actually, maybe I want the mid just to make it like fuller sounding, because it's going to be its own half line. And then I need something that's either W or L for the in hand from the seat part. And that's its own little challenge. Just the best word for hand I can think of is hand. With rain in hand. Oh, I'm mistranslating here. It's not leading, it's not steering the sea ship with rain in hand. Oh, one moment. I need to go check on my dog. I will be right. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so so the struggle is that hand, yeah. What I was saying is I think I'm mistranslating this, or at least like misparsing this a bit. So to steer the ship of the league with rain in hand. So you're steering not with the rain, which is what I just did, but your hand is in the rain as you're steering. Like, you are using the rain to steer it, so it is the tool, so instrumental isn't wrong, but I don't think that gets across exactly what's happening here. I think it's like, while the rain is in your hand. That sort of idea. So I think it would just be like, your wild leather on handa is what I would say, but alliteration, where is the problem here now? So the thing is, seat is going to be my saving grace. The problem is that all the words I can think of for seat, of all of the ones I can think of for seat, neither of them start with W or L. I can think of R's, I can think of S's, some ones that start with thorn, but I'm not thinking of any that start with W or L. But there's a chance they might exist, and this is yet another time we might want to go to Basra to see. So, yeah, see, even if I didn't use a wild leather, Lad Teach would still have an L, so it still needs an L. At least with wild leather, it gives me an idea. It gives me a chance to also have a W, and that would still work. So I'm going to search seat. Yeah, stol comes to mind. Hlyda, stol, setl, yeah. Those are all the ones that came to mind. Setl, seld, stol, yesetu, or yeset. See, the search function isn't the best on Bazoteller, I will say, because you see, I'm getting C, not just C, I'm getting C results as well, and that's annoying to have to wade through, literally. Seld, yeah. I'm getting seld, I'm getting Fader Edelstol. More C to swim through. Yeah, I guess my best bet, because there are a lot of, as you can see, a lot of compounds with words for seat. I could make up a compound for seat that starts with a W or an L. Something set or something stole or something like that, which would be good. Yuwalda Handa. So now this is actually going to be one stress with the stress on W. And this is all one half line. And then like my word for from the seat is going to make up the second half line there, I think. Maybe oh, you know what I think I just did? I did something completely backwards from what was intended here. When it says to steer the ship of the league, this is some kind of reverse kenning. And I call it a reverse kenning. It's a kenning, but it's a reverse of the typical kenning. So typically, ships are called steeds in kennings, like sea steeds and that kind of thing. And that's the sort of mindset I was operating in. But the entire point of these two lines is it's the reverse. We're calling a actual horse a ship of the league. Now the problem is I used steed instead of ship. So I was actually being too literal. And then to get the ship across, I put flottena here. But that ends up making this the typical kind of kenning where I'm talking about a boat now. But I don't want to be talking about a boat. I want to be talking about a horse, which I am, but that's the problem. So I want to change this to like firda or something like that, like of, or just firdes. Or would you use a Y in Northumbrian? I think you would. It would be like fjerd in. Oh no, it would be. It's fjerd in West Saxon. It would be ferd in Northumbrian. Yeah, ferdes. And it's feminine, so it would be ferde. There we go. Steed on ferda, like a steed of the military, of the league. I think that's closer to what's meant there. But steed means horse. So I've lost now the metaphor of the kenning. I mean, steoran is still usually used of ships and not horses, but it can be. So now I've lost the metaphor. So I need a different word than steed here. Steda for stallion is what I'm using here. So I need a word for ship that either starts with ST or starts with D. Got lots of F words for ship, lots of C, L, B, H. Yeah, I can't think of a solution that doesn't flip it inside out. Like, I'm trying to think of other ways to say ship, and all of them are kenning, so it's like a matryoshka doll of kennings, where it's like, I'm using sea steed to mean ship, but then that itself is a kenning for a horse. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm just going to have to live with that. I'm going to put an asterisk here to remind myself to do something about it later. Or exclamation point. There we go. So back to the issue at hand, what I'm looking for is making up a compound for seat that references the fact that it's on a horse, and I think my solution is going to be widge set. Widge means steed in the modern sense of just like whatever your ride is, like whatever you're riding on, which is pretty much always a horse in this context of like Old English poetry, which usually just means horse. Of widge settler. Okay. Jag wad leather on handa of widge settler, tied and strapped by girth to the stallion father's back. Steden faderskidja. Either I have ST alliteration again here, or I could switch the order and have F alliteration. I'm trying to think if there's a verb form of the word strop in Old English, because strap comes from Old English strop, which means a band of fabric, which is what a strap is. So I'm trying to think, but I can't think if there's a verb to strap in Old English. I'll open up strop and see if there's any like related verbs or anything that comes up in the... Sometimes at the bottom it'll show like related words. Not here. Yeah, from Latin. Okay. Yeah, strupus. But there is a verb strupona in Old English, in Proto-Germanic too, that might be related, I think. Okay, strup. No related words, nothing around it. Okay, so maybe there's not a verb. So I'll search strap in definition and see what comes up. 26 result lead. That's stray. That's not strap. Yeah, sometimes this happens. It ignores whatever your last letter is and gives you everything with the first group of letters, straw. Which means I have to do another like Control F for the actual word I searched for. There we go. Thwang, yeah. Thwang is where the word thong comes from. Tiel, lo, loch is actually the word there. Loch, lochschaft. I'm gonna check that one out and see the words around it. Straujan, lochschaft. Let's look on the second page. No results that actually say strap on it in the second page. Okay. So let's see. Lo. I don't think I've ever seen this word before. A strap. Mast lo, shaft lo, loch shaft. Okay. Mast lo sounds interesting. I'll have to search that. Let's look at loch shaft as well. Now, this doesn't help us at all because neither L, like L is not one of our options here. We have S or ST or F. A stick with a strap to it. Okay, that doesn't help. Strop. It only shows up in vocabulary. We know it exists because the word strap exists in modern English too. And then, do we have another one that was like promising at all? Probably. I don't think so. Olthwang. Better althong. Well, yeah, I would think so. I'm not sure what ol would mean, but al would make sense. I'm going to go to like the thwang section to see if there are any verbs around there that might be related that we could use. Like thwinan, maybe. Thwang, strip of leather, yeah. Shothwang, yeah, shoelace. Thwang. Bridel thwang. Again, that doesn't help us, but that's very pertinent to the context here. Genesis, yeah. Okay, thwang. There's no like thwingan. Is that a verb? I think I've seen it. I'm thinking of thwinan. Maybe. Just making up stuff. Thwinan. Cut off. Yeah, that's related. Thwitan. No. Ythwinglod. Connected to a verb thwingan. That's not. Does there? Dwingen. Bethwingan. Bound. Yeah, thwingel. I think I've seen that before. Thwingan is a verb. It's just not attested anywhere in Old English. Thwingloda. This would imply thwinglan or thwinglian. Compressed, fastened. Ishmaelites had their hair fastened. Thwingloda. Are there any other thwinglians anywhere? No, it's just ythwinglan. The y is just probably a past participle thing here. I don't think it adds more to the meaning. But yeah, that's fastened seems appropriate. Again, though, this doesn't really help us alliteration-wise at all. So maybe if we found a different word for like fasten, and then we could say with a strap, because then that would alliterate with stedanfæder. Yeah, like instead of tied and strapped by girth, we could just say fastened by strap or with strap to this diaphragm, because then that alliterates better. So let's just find a good word for fasten. Maybe our word for fasten might alliterate. trying to think of what's going to come up already. It did the thing. When it does the thing, you just reload it. Just reload the page. And it usually sorts itself out. Yeah, fasten. Fasten. That's what I expected. I guess fasten itself does alliterate with fad, that if I wanted to flip that around. But I have a pattern in this poem of ignoring the verbs, which is actually pretty typical. You usually ignore the verbs. At least you don't have the verbs be the main alliterations. But I've broken that a few times because it does happen in Old English poetry, and sometimes I don't have another choice. So, but I kind of don't want to use... I like spannen as an option. I really do like spannen here. And that doesn't have any kind of conflict either. Or I could just use fastan, fasteth, or you fasted. Yeah, maybe. You fasted. No. It's going to be you spunnen, right? You spannen. You spannen, yeah. You spannen mid stroppe. I think it would be 2 P's, yeah. Mid stroppe. Spannet mid stroppe. Steden faderskydje. On steden faderskydje. Sounds better, yeah. Okay, I think we got this poem. This is maybe our shortest one, because it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not our shortest one, because we had a 5 up here that was 1 for 1 for half line to full line, or the reverse, I guess. Here we had a full one here that made up for the fact that we had 2 full lines equaling 1 half line. This just looks really weird. I think Nico's going to hate this and will want me to fix something or change something about this, but I'm racking my brain for other options here. Because at this rate, because there's nothing for these to match with, I would have to make one of these two an entire line instead of just a half line. Like, if I beef this one up to be a full half line somehow, then I have to beef this one up to be an entire line, so 2 half lines, out of just from within the wine vessel, which is just of wien vata. That's how you'd say it in Old English. Yeah, okay. Well, this is Rad for, do you have a link to Nico's full poem? No, because it has not been published yet. Nico has been so kind as to let me show this in my streams while I am doing the adaptation, but this will all be in a book that will be available once the project is done. But in the meantime, I do have a link to his prior book, North Sea Rune Poems, which has, I will send that link just in one moment. North Sea Rune Poems, they are based on the younger Futhark of Old Norse, and they have facing translation in Old Norse, and that translation was done by Kevin French. And they are in the same sort of free verse that Nico uses in the English. I decided to be extra and try to make these actually fit Old English alliterative verse, which is it's a very difficult task, I will say. But yeah, let me drop the link to that book real quick. See, poems. It is very affordable, and it's worth it. They're really good poems here, North Sea Rune Poems. And then definitely check out, it's at northseapoet on Twitch. Nico has a Twitch. He does games, a lot maybe more exciting for some people than watching me translate stuff. But yeah, definitely check those out. And he has a link tree too. Let me see if I can get that open. I don't know if I have the link to the link tree. I might, somewhere. It might be linked on their Twitch. But yeah, I can link North Sea Poet's Twitch real quick. There we go. There's the Twitch. And I think it might be linked there, their link tree, which links to other stuff, other projects. I think they have a Discord server too, for their poetry projects. But yeah, that's why it's not available yet, because it's not published yet. But when it is published, the plan is to have his poem on one side and then this translation that I'm doing on the other facing page. That's the idea. And that's why the formatting is a bit of a challenge, because as you can see, it's not lining up perfectly. Such is life. We'll figure it out. All right, so it is time for the stream to end. I will definitely this week, I know I said last week that I would have time, but then lots of stuff happened. Stuff might happen again, but I have already planned, set aside the time specifically to get the next few poems done before the next stream, so that some of the next stream won't be me sitting silently trying to figure things out, and more, here's what I did, here's how I adapted these, which might be a little bit more fun. And then we'll just continue on. I'm going to try to get through, there are 30-ish poems, and we have gotten through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far. But I don't want this project to take forever, because I know he would like to publish his book very soon, so I'm definitely going to work on some of these independently in the meantime. I have, like I said, already gone forward and made some ideas, plans, and stuff for how I'm going to do them. It's just haven't gotten them down yet. I'll try to do that too. Try to have little notes ahead as well to self. All right, thank you for everyone who is here today and anyone watching this in the future. This will be on YouTube shortly, so if you're watching it there, hello. Feel free to leave suggestions or questions in the comments. I do read them and respond when they show up. And I will see you all next time, either in the next project stream, will be at the same time next week, or in Yesterlore, which is Friday evenings. We'll be reading more Middle English stuff. Okay, thank you, and goodbye.